Hello there and welcome to WB Fun Woodworking. I'm Don. Some of you may have seen the video that I did on the dead blow mallets. I've now made some holders for them. This is the one that I made here for the shop for this particular mallet, and the other mallet is hanging in my office. Here's the video on building these tool holders. I discovered that the scrap of maple that I had left was enough for tool holders for both mallets. I also had enough myrtle wood left that if I designed them correctly, I could make cleats to hold the mallets onto the maple. I cut the first cleat at the bandsaw, making sure that I left enough room on the other side for another cleat. Before I went any farther, I checked both pieces together. I had to finish up the curve on the first cleat. Oops, I chose a bad angle to show this cut. Now you can see what I was doing. After making those cuts, I headed over to the spindle sander to clean things up. I really like this spindle sander. It works great for this kind of work. As I sanded, I took most of the white line on each piece. As you can see here, the spindle sander left me with a real nice smooth surface. I compared the width of the finished cleat to the width of the mallet head. I wanted the cleat to be wider so I could make a lip that would hold the mallet onto the top of the cleat. You'll see that in another step later on. With the first cleat finished to its final size, I used it as a pattern for the other cleat. I was successful with my first pair. They really matched very well. I clearly marked the outside portion of these cleats and numbered them. Using the first cleat as a pattern, I marked the second piece of myrtle wood. I followed the same process. As you can see, I was very successful in making these two cleats. I attached the pairs of cleats together using double stick tape. I marked a lip on the top of the cleats so the mallets wouldn't fall off when they were hanging on the wall. I used the bandsaw to cut the cleat tops up to that lip. Then I turned the cleats around and cut off that piece. I now had the 4 cleats that would hold the mallets on the back pieces. The next step was to cut the back pieces to the right lengths. I used a square to mark where I needed to cut. All the pieces of the holders are now finished, except the back pieces had to be cut to the right width. To measure the width, I placed the mallet between the saw blade and the fence. With the fence set, I made sure the pieces were wide enough. Once that was determined, I ripped the pieces to the proper width. Now I need to determine where the holes are going to go and how to put these holders together. I put each mallet on its backing piece with the cleats in the right spot, and I propped up the handle so the mallet head would be flat on the backing piece. The Poloni pocket rule from woodpeckers was used to make sure the cleats were parallel to the sides. By using the centering rule at the bottom, I could make sure that the mallet handle was centered. Once I was sure everything was correct, I used a pencil to mark out where the cleats were. As you can see here, I used the pencil to fully outline the cleats, so I knew where to drill the holes. I marked all the hole locations and used my drill press to drill the holes. With all 4 holes drilled, I turned the back piece over and countersunk each of the holes. Now came the tricky part, marking the cleats so that they could be screwed to the backing piece. I held the cleat in position and used a brad point bit to mark where the hole needed to be drilled. It turned out pretty good. I used this big gator drill guide that I found at Rockler one day to make sure I was drilling the hole perpendicular into the back of the cleat. To make the hole deep enough for the screw, I marked my drill bit with blue tape and drilled it out to the right depth. Before screwing on the cleat, I lubricated the screw with paraffin wax. The cleat was screwed onto the backer piece with a square drive screw and screwdriver. I bought a set of Narex square drive screwdrivers and they're very nice. I clamped a square to the backer piece to make sure the tops of the cleats were even with one another. Then I repeated the same procedure that I'd used before, using a brad point bit to mark where I was going to drill for the screw. I drilled the hole for the screw just like I had done with the other one. I attached the second cleat the same way I attached the first one. Notice that I'm only using the top screw. I'll drill the holes for the bottom screw once those are in place. I used the Poloni ruler again just to make sure the cleats were parallel with the edge before I drilled the holes. After marking my drill bit again with blue tape, I drilled the 2 bottom holes. With the holes drilled, I completed attaching the cleats to the backer piece. The next step started with disassembling the holder so that I could sand everything down. I started the sanding with the end grain. I started with 100 and moved all the way up to 400. I found that end grain takes finish much better when I do this. When I got to the sides, I only sanded them up to 220. I used my random orbit sander to sand off all the pencil marks on the backing piece and then sanded it up to 220 grit. To chamfer the edge around the backer piece, I decided to use my new block plane. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed using it again. No, I haven't sharpened it yet. I'll be doing that soon. Those shavings look great. As can be seen here, it did a great job. For the tool holder that goes in the shop, I had to attach a French cleat to the back. I marked the holes in it with an awl. I drilled the holes at the drill press with a bit that has a countersink attached to it. I re-drilled those holes with a larger drill bit so that the screws would slide through the holes. To attach the French cleat, I used a square and a clamp to keep it perpendicular to the sides. Again, I used some blue tape to mark my drill bit for the right depth. The French cleat was attached to those holes with some square drive screws. Once both holders were fully assembled, I sprayed them with a coat of shellac. After a second coat of shellac, I sprayed lacquer on both of the holders. You may have noticed that the back of the holder on the left has a keyhole cut into it rather than a French cleat. I also used slot drive brass screws instead of the square drive steel screws. This is the one that's going to go on the wall in my office. Well, that's how I made the tool holder for this mallet and the one in my office. I'm finding that this tool wall is really handy. If you liked this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up down below. Ask any questions or make any comments that you have. And please subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for watching.